Hi everyone, Steve. Welcome to another edition of the Audiophiles. This is a midweek roundtable. Got some new faces on the roundtable today. Excited to go to that. And if you haven't, click on that subscription button. It helps my channel grow, obviously, gets me guests. And of course, if you need equipment, I'm here at the Hi-Fi Center, 433 Carroll, downtown Vancouver. Today's topic on the midweek roundtable is audiophile vinyl demand. Is FOMO no longer? Is it diminished? Let's find out what the panel thinks of audiophile vinyl. FOMO, no FOMO. Let's get to it. We'll see you on the other side of the Audiophiles. Hello, everyone. Steve from the Audiophiles. Fun midweek roundtable here. We got new cast of characters. Look on the screen here. Some that you've probably recognized from other shows, and one brand new guest today. I guess new to the roundtable, new to YouTube, new to almost Zoom. I'll start with Anthony. Anthony Kershaw, fellow Canadian from Victoria, British Columbia. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm very good. Thanks for joining me. We'll get into a lot right away, but I'll just want to say that just so everyone knows about Anthony, he's one of the finest classical artists in Canada. You're a flute player, conducted in some of the finest ensembles in both Europe and North America. So welcome. That's incredible. And I know you've been playing flute as long as I've been alive, just so you know.
Longer.
That's aging you, or if that's aging me, I don't know. So thanks for joining me. And also too, Anthony, as it was 1997, you've been the publisher of Audiophilia, one of the longest and most widely read music and audio magazines on the web. So if you have,
I should correct you. We do have an Audiophile channel, YouTube channel, a whole 2,500 subscribers. So
there you go. Subscribe now, and I know come Friday you're going to be down in Seattle for the Pacific Audio Fest down there.
3 or 4 of us heading down to Seattle from our team. I'm just going to do a nice casual walk around and post just across social media. Not doing a special show report, but going down to have some good stuff.
Excellent. Next guest here, brand new to the show, Patrick, the Vinyl Archivist, knows everything about sound and vinyl. Patrick, thank you. I watched your live stream. No pressure. Glad you can make it. Really, and glad you can be on the channel. It's been great to see you. And another Rachel's Ghost from Rachel's Ghost, one of the most successful vinyl streams on the VC. I watch it every morning when I come into Vancouver. Rachel, welcome. Another Canadian. They're surrounded by Canadians today, Rachel. This is great.
Well, this is wonderful. Let's get our maple leaves out. Although they're going to be green. You know, they turn that lovely autumn.
Where's my toque?
There.
Where's my toque?
Well, it's been so cold in Vancouver that my furnace of my house went on last night. So that just tells you it's just been a little bit chilly. So, and last but not least, we have the Waxed, and Wax, welcome. He's got a YouTube channel, does a lot of live auctions, and is, I think, Rachel's wingman on the Rachel's Ghost live stream, more or less, I would have to say. So welcome to the show. And I will let everyone know that I think Rob and I have known each other the longest that I've ever anyone. I think I was introduced to you, or vice versa, when I started my Mobile Fidelity vinyl buy and sell page, and I almost kicked you off because you weren't posting audiophile vinyl. Remember, I was giving you shit for that. So
is that your page?
Yes, that's my page. Yeah,
well, I've been a member of that probably longer than Rob has.
But we started chatting there, and I think burgeoning into YouTube around the same time. And
I will say, and I've never really said this when I've been on the Rachel stream before, I wanted to thank you because I mean, actually, you helped me, in the very beginning, get my channel off the ground and helped me with a few things. So if you remember back then when it was, when you're first starting this stuff, how embarrassing, brutal is. So
I used to say you have to look at the camera. You should put a shirt on.
I never liked wearing a shirt because I mean, I would have shaved my chest for it, so it was okay. So today we're going to talk. This is an audiophile roundtable. I haven't decided what the title will be. I guess we'll see that tomorrow, and we'll post this, Wednesday 5 a.m. Audiophile vinyl sales. I mean, Rachel, I'm going to start with you. Are you a big fan of audio, or do you buy a lot of audiophile vinyl records? I mean, I do. Where are you at with things?
No, I don't. Just prior to the show starting, we're talking a little bit about things. I mean, when I go for audio quality, it's the Beatles. So I've got a lot of I'm a huge Beatles fan, really kind of the raison d'etre for getting me back into vinyl was watching these Beatle channels, Joe Mayo and Larry Graves and people of this nature, great channels all. And I started watching. Then it was Ron Beaudry's a bona fide audiophile himself. Now I rock a P6. I've got an exact cartridge in it. I've got Marantz amp, and I have a Budgie phono stage preamp, which I picked up from Patrick, our good friend Patrick here. I've got some hum in it, so I've sidelined it temporarily, and I've got ADS M1290s, ADS Audio Digital Systems. They're a great company. And this really, 1990, they came out with these M12s. You can look for them on the internet, and there are a lot of reviews and people talking about them. They're highly regarded. And so that's my rig. And so what I do in terms of the actual pressings, right now I've been collecting a bunch of the Japanese Beatle pressings. In the 70s, really it was a Japanese pressing. I know Patrick's not a fan of these things, but in the 70s, that's where we went. That was for, if you wanted good quality Beatles, other than the first pressing UK and stuff, which I'm collecting as well. This year it's been my goal. Last year it was the year of the box set, so a lot of multiple album editions. And in fact, this year I picked up the Stones in mono. And again, so I do look for quality that way. I've got a pretty good system. I think it would probably be above average with the average record player, maybe nothing on the level of Michael 45 or some individuals out there, but it's pretty good. So, but no, I do have some mobile fidelity product in the collection, but mostly courtesy of gifts that have come courtesy of VCLT, Vinyl Community Love Train. People gift one another records, and so I've been fortunate to get a few that way.
So Anthony, I think the theme's going to be, I mean, do we see this audiophile vinyl market sort of go down or become a sideways market, or demand is, supply is outweighing demand? Like, where are you at? You got your
I'm
pulse
very
on
lucky
things.
because I get a lot of the free records to review. So I haven't bought a record for quite a long time, except I wanted to get into some collecting because I kind of got the VC bug watching all these videos. So I bought 100 records in the last 2 months. And I think Discogs have got a hitman looking for me. My wife was saying, you're getting a lot of records, darling. What's going on? Well, some of the prices, the Discogs tax, the EMI tax, the original tax, and of course, for we Canadians, the import tax. I mean, we were talking about earlier, or what are the records we bought? The what are they called? UHQR from
Well, any one step or anything for like $150 US. When it comes to Rachel's door, it's $230.
And my door, which is just down the road from Rachel,
right?
$250. Yeah, that's right. So like most things in this life, once greed gets a hold, it starts to get ruined. So I think it was really exciting for a while, but I think the FOMO has worn off. My nephew Ian, he's also writes for Audiophile, and he has a record business on the side, and he says he's seen a market difference in the last 6 months, that people won't pay the audiophile tax or the Bernie Grundman tax or the Kevin Gray tax, all wonderful things and wonderful products. But people are asking, they want for the best products like Kevin's and Bernie's, they want a lot of money, especially if you go to Discogs or eBay. So it's, I think the FOMO has worn off a little bit. I see some of the excitement wearing down, and people will get back to really negotiating and maybe lucky enough to get an OG Japanese pressing like Rachel collects and I collect at a lower price. We'll see, but I think it's going down.
So that's probably leads me. I mean, FOMO is probably gone for audiophile market. I mean, we had the whole COVID thing. That was a lot of fun. You had to buy the latest and greatest MoFi or UHQR. That's not a big deal now. And I know, Wax, we're going to talk about that in a second with you, but I'll go to Patrick first and we'll leave it with Wax. I know there's a story you want to tell about, demand and supply. Patrick, what are you feeling? Are you a big audiophile vinyl repress guy, or are you more of the original?
Well, I think most people that know me would say that I'm not, but I'm always willing to listen and try. So my thing is that I've been making digital recordings for probably the last 13, 14 years on the internet, and a whole different world. But I mean, I've had people send me different pressings from all over the world. I record them. I have them in my library. I can compare them. I could post them, and everyone can listen to them, compare them. and, come to a consensus kind of, on what we on what we as a community think sounds the best. So I've done that maybe 6 or 7 times on YouTube. I've had a couple of shootouts blind where I post 4 clips from 4 different pressings. People don't know what they are. They can listen to them on YouTube, or they can download them, listen to them on their system, how they want it. They have a DAC, then they vote, and, so some of the results to me are pretty surprising, and we can talk about that later if you want to, but
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, so I just want the best sounding pressings of music that I love. And I find that people may not be willing, myself included, to jump at a UHQR or a 1-step like I once did before. But I see people, I have auctions as well. I see people that will pay good money, for an original pressing of something that is considered to be the best sounding of that version, something that might be considered common, like maybe Boston's first album. I've seen people will pay upwards of $40 for a good Columbia Santa Maria mastered by Wally Trouted, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So people will still buy records. I think they're a little bit more selective and just not going to jump the gun like on something. They're going to wait and see what the review is for people like you, Steve, and say, hey, how does that Steely Dan Can't Buy a Thrill UHQR sound? People like, Tim at University of Vinyl. Hey, how does that, sound? People like me or whoever. How does that sound versus, something I can get elsewhere? They're not so quick to jump immediately, like, I got to call Chad now and get a copy. So that's just my take on it.
And that's what's happening. You look at the MoFi site, they got the whole Eagles catalog. I mean, Van Halen's coming out. And as you guys know, I founded the MoFi Buy and Sell on Facebook. And I was looking today, just before we got on, you can buy the Van Halen, I think someone's listing the Van Halen self-titled in 1984, both cut by Bellman at Bernie Grundman Studios for $25 each, all analog. So, I mean, do you wait around for the repress, whenever that happens? I don't know. Van Halen, MoFi said they're pressing 12,000 of the self-titled. Hotel California, whenever that comes out, 17,500. Is that a little high? Do you think that's or do you think that's COVID numbers? What do you guys think, Rob?
I don't think they're COVID numbers. I think they're made up numbers, what maybe they think, because regardless of if they don't sell them on the first push, they'll probably sell. But these are albums that were hugely popular, and Patrick knows more than I do, that were pressed regularly over the course of whatever amount of time.
And the originals sound great, sound phenomenal.
So where
both those records,
where me and Patrick have in common, I kind of look towards Patrick as sort of a mentor when it comes to this stuff, because I'm upgrading my system. I'm moving to a tube amp and stuff like that, but that's not where my passion goes. It's the nerdiness of what Patrick knows, and identifying things and listening to things and knowing what sounds best to me. This past weekend, I did an auction, but I had found a Donald Fagen Nightfly OG, Robert Ludwig mastered in the Deadwags, and it was very clean. And I listened to the Chris Bellman, which is the current reissue you can get, right? And I liked the Chris Bellman. It sounded better to me. That, it was originally a digital record. And I think we sort of have, in my small world, have a little bit of influence when we can stand behind something and say, oh, this sounds great. I know this sounds great. I own it. That's why when I do auctions, I tend to pick up records that I know are great, and I don't have problems selling them to people and that sort of thing. So,
and we're going to get to, Rob, like sort of supply and demand. You were mentioning at the top about what you see or what you've heard going on in the industry. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more.
Well, I have friends, and there are people who know more than me and have different experiences, but I have a friend who has a reissue label, and it's always been a tough time for him to get the licensing rights to records, because with everything that's gone up in this hobby, for the record companies, their fees are going up. The people who own the tapes, generally, if you want to reissue a universal title, I think their fees have, if not doubled, quadrupled just to get the rights to press it. Then you go into the whole cost of manufacturing the record and marketing it and selling it. So even the small guys, are kind of feeling the pinch of it. You wouldn't think that, but they are in that regard. So for their cost to put out a record, you know, they don't have the budget for it. They don't have budgets for marketing, definitely.
As soon
So-
as soon as it goes mainstream, and Sony, BMG, and they start thinking, we can make money out of this vinyl stuff, because then civilians start buying vinyl. It's
Well-
over for the small guy. I mean, it's
Well,
terrible.
but I'll tell you this, they rely on the small guys to help make money on parts of their catalog that are just not cost effective for them. I mean, they're in the Taylor Swift business. They're not in the Mott the Hoople business. You know, they need these smaller reissue labels to keep their library active and desirable, you know? So.
And then look what happened with Rhino. Rhino came out last month with their own high fidelity label. They released 2 albums of the Cars, which I think is probably going to sell out if it hasn't already. And what was it, Coltrane Sound? And both have, both got great reviews. Did anyone buy the Cars? The
Cars
Cars
sounds
release?
great. The Cars sounds great. I mean, it's different than the original. It's more open. I think it's more open because of the wiring that Kevin Gray has done in his studio. I think a lot of that has to do with the clarity. That's probably the biggest benefit of today's reissues is the clarity and the wiring and that they have in the studios today. I think that made the big difference for me.
And Patrick, I mean, I'm friends with Kevin, so I mean, I've talked to him a lot about this. I mean, the 70s records, the way they were cut, they had to really filter the lower end down just so there would be a lot of skipping on the vinyl. So that's what we're not really getting any longer. So we're really getting what we're hearing from the tapes, because what Kevin did with the low end, the bass, was he didn't filter at all. So you're hearing really what was heard in the studios, which I find fascinating. So that's a lot of the reasons why some of these remastered represses do sound better than the originals, because there's less filtering. Of course, you mentioned the wiring and a little bit different technology in the mastering as of today. So look, the Cars is a great example where the original was incredible, and the Kevin Gray Rhino one is that much better.
The Cars, it's on its way. It was delayed, I think, with some packaging problems. So I'm getting mine supposedly soon, the press copy. I got the Coltrane Sound. It was interesting. I had to clean it 2 or 3 times to get it going. Once I did, it was good. It's not. I think I'm not a Coltrane scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but it's one of all Coltrane records are wonderful, but this one is not quite, I think, at the level of some of his other ones. But the recording is very good. The packaging, the Rhino packaging, is incredibly good. And I'm not a what do they call it, tip-on freak, or the lunacy that goes on. But and there was some criticisms about the Coltrane Sound cover. It's really remarkably good, very good. You can get an Obi, which is nice.
Well,
Without getting the Japanese presents.
Rachel,
Well,
did you partake in the Rhino Express?
Oh, I was aware of it. In fact, I was skeptical, and now I'm kicking myself because I love that debut album by the Cars. It's one of those proverbial desert island. You're on a desert island. Rob loves this allegory. We tease each other all about this all the time. But anyway, it's a great album. And as you said, Steve, it sounded good coming out of the box, live Canadian first press of it.
I have one too.
It was one of the first albums I had to get back in my collection. And I still go to it. I still play it frequently. I've also got it on compact disc, God forbid, but yes, compact disc. So some albums I love so much that I'll have them in both formats of CD and also vinyl. But yeah, from what I'm hearing, they really did a great job on this release. And and apparently it is sold out. That's what
it is sold out. Okay.
Patrick was telling us that it was,
I did see one listed on Discogs last night, and I think it was like upwards of $100 USD. So I'm not sure if it's still listed, but that's a lot.
FOMO's alive and well.
Well, I mean, for that one, I think that goes
For
back.
that
Let's
one,
talk
yes.
about that again. FOMO, but it's limited and depends on the title. So, I mean, what's Rhino going to come up with next? There's a lot of rumors about AC/DC.
Why can't they repress 10,000 more copies of the Cars? I mean, was it negotiated they can only press
Well, it's
15,000 or?
It's
Possible.
their album.
Yeah, I mean, it's their company. I mean, they can do whatever they want. They could repress it.
Well, I mean, my interview with Patrick Milligan is the AR of Rhino. I think they're just playing around with the supply demand right now. They didn't really know what to expect. So they just use that 5,000 as sort of the litmus test, right? And to see how it would go. I mean, obviously 5,000 is going to, sold pretty quickly with the cars. I'm not sure if Coltrane's going to sell out as quickly. And I even asked them, I said, is it going to be more rock, more jazz? And they'll mix it up depending on demand. I mean, they can do that, right? Where a company like Chad or MoFi, it's expensive if they make those mistakes.
I was at a thing with my wife who's in the All-American band. And so they had a reunion, and one of the guys in it is a product manager at Rhino and actually works with Patrick Milligan. And I was talking to him. He's doing a lot of the Joni Mitchell stuff and a lot of the Pantera stuff they're doing. And I asked him, I said, hey, so what are you guys going to do next? I said, and I told him, I said, dude, why don't you just do a straight Deep Purple catalog, do a Black Sabbath thing, do it all, because it's all mixed up on the way they do it. Like Kevin Gray will do one, Chris Bellman will do another. They'll do it. The catalogs for Deep Purple and Black Sabbath are all over the map on Rhino. I mean, they're everywhere. Colored versions, purple, not purple, black. It's like, I told him, I said, dude, why don't you guys just do one really good reissue of those bands, so.
And I did ask Patrick that when I said I had one suggestion, the Black Sabbath catalog. Imagine if that was all recut by Kevin at $40 a pop.
Using the UK tapes.
They have to be the UK tapes, exactly. Yes. So I don't know. I mean, I think the original, what is it? The Large Swirl Black Sabbath self-title. That's the one again. That's sort of like the triangle. What is it? The blue triangle, Dark Side of the Moon.
It's the one that has the Phillips credit on the backside label, and it has the Phillips credit. That's the one you technically you should get. You want. So
be hard to beat. But I'd like to see Black Sabbath. There's a lot of rumors going around that it was AC/DC the next up. I don't think so. Not that I know, but I don't think it's AC/DC.
No,
Rob, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was gonna talk a little bit when Andrew was talking about the Coltrane sounds. In my understanding, those Coltrane were not recorded that great. But in 2010, Rhino did an outstanding. I think they did 5 titles that Bernie did, and Coltrane Sounds was one of them. That's the one I have with Tip-On Jacket, not an Obi. But really nice and a great sounding record. They did, I think 3 Coltrane. They did a Ray Charles. They did Coleman Hawkins, Milt Jackson title. But I mean, they're the one. I have to think they're the one reissue company that's been doing it. I mean, they're the ones walking the walk. And if you want to call something audiophile, Patrick will tell you his favorite album is Love.
Forever Changes. Forever Changes. One of it, yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. I never heard of the band before last month.
But Patrick will tell you that the current ones you can kind of get, that Rhino issues of mono and a stereo. What's your opinion on that stereo? Would you call that audiophile? Would you?
I think the Rhino Forever Changes.
Well, they did 2 versions. So Patrick, it's his favorite album, so he'll tell you.
Well, I mean, the Rhino versions are great. I mean, I had the ERC. I mean, that's the only time I ever bought an ERC was for Forever Changes. I said, if I'm ever going to buy one, this is what I'm going to buy, So I bought one and I loved it, but there were some weird things with it, but I still love it. But the Rhino's great. I mean, the Rhino's phenomenal. And but the mono, people say it's a fold down that might, and then it's not a true mono. Some of it is true mono. It depends on who you listen to. But I mean, the Rhino sounds phenomenal. The Rhino sounds great. I mean, and I think they did but MoFi did a version, I think, too. MoFi did the 45, or was that Rhino? I can't remember. I have all of them.
MoFi did a 45 of Love.
Yeah,
and the ERC, though, Patrick, I do believe it was a fold down, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, no, that was the mono one, but they did a stereo one, too. I mean, they did a stereo version as well. I bought the stereo, not the mono.
But see, this goes back to what Patrick knows and what I've learned from him. So again, getting back to Rhino, because they're the one company I can point to. They do that start your year off right. This year was a great year for it because the Yes Fragile, that's the Kevin Gray cut. And you
$25.
Yep.
$24. They did
the old acoustic.
The Billy Cottam Spectrum record. That's a Kevin Gray cut.
That's amazing. That is a phenomenal reissue, by the way, that no one talks about. That Billy Cobham Spectrum is absolutely to die for.
Right. And that's $24. So I think we like to focus in on these ERC titles and what
UHQR, One Step, the $150,
but
$200 albums.
okay, here's one of the best stories ever that's happened in the last few years. Record Store Day 3 years ago, they put out the War's Greatest Hits record. No one thinks about it. That I believe I bought it for $24 on Record Store Day. No one talked about it. Then Kevin Gray comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, that's the one record I did on my tube system." But bam. And on one of my auctions, I sold it for $17. Yeah, then I walk into a record store and they had it for $28 and I bought it. But I mean, it was a non-thing for them. But Kevin Gray did it on his tube system. Did you pick that up, Patrick? Did you get that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes. But so what is an audiophile record, Steve?
I agree with that sentiment, because I actually picked out records because Steve said, I said, do we need to do any homework? And so my actually thought was, you can have a $5 album that's an audiophile album. Like any Ambrosia album is an audiophile album, but you can find it for $1 or $2. But that's an audiophile. Toto 4 is an audiophile album. Boston Self-Titled is an audiophile album.
So Anthony, here's a question. So what is an audiophile title? I mean, what is it at this point?
It's very simple. Whatever person's listening, if you consider yourself an audiophile, you can tell an audiophile record in 3 seconds. Any genre, jazz, classical, pop. I didn't know Forever Changes Love Who until I heard people talking about it on YouTube, and then the FOMO got a little bit of me. And again, my nephew Ian had a copy of the Rhino and was very nice one day, very altruistic, and gave it to me. I put it on, and this guy had a voice. The orchestrations, the arrangements were amazing. When the snare drum comes in from the left speaker, about 16 bars in, I knew that was an audiophile record. It's
Alone Again, or just it's instant. Once you just hear it. Yeah,
it's so open. The dynamics, it's beautiful. It doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, we had a Canadian
I saw that on your list. I went on your website and I saw your list of the dream list, and I said, wow, he's got Forever Changes on there. So yeah.
Oh no, I'm in love with that record. In fact, it's not just a beautiful record. It's actually very poignant and beautifully, as a musician, it's beautifully constructed. I was blown away. Anyway, I was talking about Tea for the Tillerman. There's a local store in town, and as the freight train of vinyl started getting more exciting, all these digital CD sourced LPs came out. I didn't know much about it. I went down, I got all 4 Led Zeppelins and Tea for the Tillerman, and they were absolute crap. And I'm listening to them like, am I supposed to be enjoying this? It was terrible. I went to a record show in Nanaimo, north of here, home of Diana Krall, talking about audiophiles. And I picked up a piece of just dirt all over it. Canadian, Steve likes Canadian pressings, Canadian Tea for the Tillerman. My wife has fantastic ears and she knows this repertoire, the pop repertoire, far better than I do. I cleaned it up, put it on. She walked in 2 bars, she went, oh my God, what a difference. And it was amazing, just incredible. So yeah, anybody with ears, even if you call yourself an audiophile or not, can tell a beautifully recorded album with care. The stuff that was coming out is a bit different now because the hype sticker is become a thing, a civilian thing. It was an audiophile thing, but now it's a civilian thing. And so they want to know that there was at least some care taken. But I'm with Rachel. I've got I actually bought the Stones and Mono, and my wife was like, "Are you buying that?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to buy it." I loved it. I've discovered pop music in the last 3 months. But anyway, it's a digital source because every one of the tapes were wrecked, and it's wonderful, really, really good. And there's a couple of other digital source records. I've got the Record Store Day, Chet Baker at the Blue Room. Have you heard that? That's a digital, fantastic record. Very musical, very beautiful, very analog, but it's a digital source. So it depends on who does it, I think.
Well, Rachel,
I would agree. Yeah.
Rachel, I mean, we both, I guess three of us, Anthony as well. I mean, I have a lot of Canadian first presses. I'm assuming Rachel does as well. There's a lot of great sounding first press Canadians. I mean, they probably use the same duplicate master, whatever they use. I mean, obviously the vinyl is 120 gram back in the 70s and early 80s. But
yeah,
I mean,
that stuff didn't matter. It really didn't matter to me at all.
no,
None of that stuff matters.
Mine sound great. So I think, Rachel, and I mean, maybe, we can maybe nip this in the bud about audiophile vinyl. I think it's just a marketing thing at this point. That's all this is really what it is. What do you think, Rachel?
Like what
Anthony
Anthony said.
much better. And the baseline for equipment is getting much better. I mean, it started about 10, 15 years ago with Rager and stuff. So kids can go in and get a Rager 1, Rager 2 with the exact cartridge and have a couple of speakers and go, wow, I reviewed a $1,200 table the other day. It's, the review's out already on Audiophile. It's a dual table. It had some issues, but it was a very good table. It was $1,200 US with a phono stage on board and a Audiophile blue cartridge. And if I'd have bought that at 20 years old, I'd have been in vinyl heaven. I'd have been in just heaven for the next 10 years. So I think a lot of the baseline is the equipment's got a lot better.
Well, and I agree with that, because I mean, getting back to my point about filtering the bottom end, that doesn't happen any longer, because you don't have to worry about the record skipping like they once did in the 70s, or the Robert Ludwig, as we know, the famous Robert Ludwig RL Led Zeppelin 2 cut that he did, which was skipping. So they had to basically repress that one with the bass lowered down. So I mean, that is a big example there, and we're not getting that now. So that's what we're hearing. And then Patrick, you did mention you're hearing a lot more clarity out of some of these new represses as well, and that I think has a lot to do with the mastering and the machinery and the I guess the equipment or the circuitry that they're using now too.
And it depends on, like, I'm not a digital anti-digital guy. I'm not a purist of any type. I just like what sounds good. If it sounds good to me, I did the first, one of the biggest shootouts I did was Bob Marley Exodus, because I had the Abbey Road. Someone sent me the UHQR. I had the 1982 German box set. I had the original pressing, and through it all, after it all was said and done, the Abbey Road that people were lambasting was hands down what people preferred. By far, more than the UHQR, more than anything, the $25, it's not $25 anymore, Abbey Road half-speed master of Exodus was preferred. And some of the people that voted were hardcore audiophiles in the YouTube community. And so it was a shock to a lot of people. And it's gone that way for all of these shootouts. Once you take away the bias of what you're listening to, and you just listen to the music and not say, well, nobody wants to hear they paid $200 for something they could have gotten, that sounds better for $25. Nobody, me especially, anybody.
And I think that's the psychological bias. I think because you got a $200 record, and you got a $25 Abbey Road, you got an original, you're gonna, automatically your brain's gonna say, well, because I bought it for $200, it has to sound better.
Yeah.
So I think some of these shootouts, and Rachel, I don't know if you do many shootouts any longer on your channel, Rachel?
But no, I haven't done traditional. Really, it's all the live stream right now. And the other thing, just it generates subs, I find, are doing the YouTube shorts. So I do a lot of these, and they're music samples. So when you come to my channel, you get kind of what we're doing here, but certainly not with the audiophile focus in general. Occasionally we'll get an audiophile person on, but more often than not, it's Rob and I just having a giggle with one another and talking music.
Well, you get Mazzy, you get the In-Groove on there. You get Mike from the In-Groove. You get Mazzy. You get Poetry on Plastic. Those are audiophiles.
I got this Patrick Vinyl Archivist kid in too, and he's
not
pretty
me.
knowledgeable.
I'm not a hardware guy, but
well,
so I think
your stuff.
I think we can all agree that, I mean, it's just all in the name. It's all in the hype sticker. I mean, audiophile, 180 gram versus 120 gram versus mastered by Kevin Gray at 180, mastered at Kevin Gray at 120 gram. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, it depends.
Not to me. I mean, the weight has never mattered to me. As a matter of fact, 200 grams is a turnoff for me. I mean, I've had so many problems with 200 gram records. And they're so big, you have to adjust your vertical tracking because they're so freaking tall.
It's the honesty matters. That's what matters. And it doesn't matter about anything else. I don't care if it's digital, as long as they say it's from social media digital tape. Thank you, I'll buy it if it sounds good. But the MoFi debacle, as an outsider looking in, especially in VC, now I feel I'm part of the VC, is great. but when I was looking in, and they had this, look over here, audiophiles can't tell the difference between, that's crap. It was basically just an atrocious, business optics exercise, but basically, alleged fraud. And it's, they talked about all sorts of things. Forget about the sound. Just be honest. Every time I talk to a couple of our team, I said, what does this look like on this hype sticker? And I remember, I think it was Ian said, yeah, they're a little vague about things sometimes, but it's getting to be, like I said, it used to be just audiophiles would scrutinize it. Now,
CDs used to have like the SPAR codes. They'd say, analog, analog, digital, 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 digital. Just do that. The Rolling Stones in mono was cut from DSD that Robert Ludwig transferred years ago. The Beatles stereo box set was from 24/192 digital. Those were cut from digital. Say it.
That's right. Just the ones I was telling about. I did a post the other day. There were 4 records that were from digital. They were very honest about it, including the Stones in mono, which is just a wonderful set. And just be honest. And then people.
I got this week. This is a Bill Withers MoFi title, and this sounds phenomenal. I have the original, and I listened to it, and I went, I said, I'm going to buy this because I love this record, and I want to just see what it sounds like compared to the original. How close is it? This sounds great. This is a great sounding record, and it costs less than a clean original would cost you today. It sounds great. So
not to one up the Bill Withers, but this is what you're getting now. From analog master, like written at the very, very, very top. So there's no argument about it. And that, by the way, that's an incredibly good record.
And that's a good selling point, to put, if you're cutting from analog, you should blow it up in big letters, which is funny because in the 80s, I have records that say digital master in big freaking letters. Like that was a selling point.
Yeah.
Well, so Steve, there's one point I wanted to talk about because my background's in market research, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And in the entertainment industry, and the one part of the entertainment industry that really doesn't do traditional market research is the music industry. They don't really do it. They don't do focus groups. They don't really solicit users for their opinions. So these decisions are being made by boardroom people without.
What did David Letterman call them? Record weasels.
well, record weasels, but my forte's movies, they won't make any decision. And I'm talking, I know stories back to Gone with the Wind. So if you think this is a recent phenomenon in the last 30 years, you're wrong. The movie industry always solicited people for their opinions. And I think we're seeing, in my mind, the problems right now, going back to your point, why MoFi is making 17,000 copies of an album is because MoFi decided to make 17,000 copies of an album. Was it a bean counter saying we can have a better negotiation deal for 17,000? But they weren't asking people, I think. They're not asking the people who buy the records this. They're resting on existing data from sales and downloads, and they're really not asking the people who buy the records.
That's a good point. And I think guys and gals like us who have these YouTube channels and are involved in the vinyl community, I know companies like Rhino and MoFi and of course Chad are watching these roundtables and these other shows as well to guide interest, to see where interest is at. So I know that's happening because I've been contacted, right? So that is happening. I think that's something that these companies need to look at going forward, because we're the ones talking about it every day. We're passionate about it, enthusiastic about it. I'm sometimes over enthusiastic in some of my interviews, as we all know, but I love it. I just love vinyl. I love records. I love talking it. So that's just my passion. I think they should, like Rob said, they should watch more of this stuff to really gauge where their market. I really truly feel that way too. I agree with you.
It's never been better, ever, with equipment, and it's accessible. And so for the record world, it's wonderful. The only thing that's wrong about it is pricing.
And lack of production facilities. They don't have enough
25
production facilities.
25 opening up.
They're getting there. They're actually making new pressing facilities now. But for the first 10 years, they had to repurpose old, ancient frickin', pressing plants. It was, they just now are coming up with new pressing plants. They're building new pressing machines. finally.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a capitalist. I think making a really good, healthy profit on a record for the artists and for people like Chad and Impex. I love that company. It's a wonderful, wonderful company, great records. Make as much as you can. I just think that the way the business is right now, the prices are going to start to will have to come down. I mean, I bid on a Beecham Scheherazade. It's a very white label EMI from 1959. It's a very valuable record. And the guy sent me 4 emails getting it down from 50 pounds to 45 pounds to 40. Finally, I got it for 25 pounds. And I think he would have just waited it out. And I think they'd be an overpriced, but that's good for us. Great quality, lots of choice. The other thing is all these jazz albums. Have you noticed that, a lot of them are amazing, the famous ones, but sometimes I stream on Apple TV on Apple Music just to hear some of the sounds. To my taste, some of it's amazing. Oh, I'll get that record. Some of it's like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get that record and pay $125 for the one step.
Well, that's one. I mean, give a great example. Undercurrent, Bill Evans. It was a MoFi or whatever. I mean, I know that I've heard that the actual master tape is not very good in that album for that record. So no matter Undercurrent, Bill Evans.
Hold on, I got an OG
right. This is Some Other Time, the Lost Session from the Black Forest.
Okay.
This is on the Audiophile Dream list. It went almost first. It's absolutely remarkable. René Laflamme from Niagara. His company, it's called 2HD Vinyl, and it's really, really something.
What do you have there, Rob?
I do have an Undercurrent over here, an original.
So Undercurrent, the tape is not great, just the master itself. So I think that's what you're hearing. A lot of people complain about Undercurrent or the MoFi version or whatnot.
I don't know if it was a well-recorded record.
Yeah.
You can't polish something like that. Sometimes, you're only as good as your weakest point. You have to have a good source to have a good end product. So, I mean, you can't fix something that's recorded badly. Look at Black Sabbath, Born Again. If you ever heard that record, you're going to sit there and you go, well, what are we going to do with this one?
Going back to Love again, Patrick, Bruce Botnick was the engineer on that album around the same time. I guess that came out the same time as the Doors album, 67. So, I mean, was it the same studio?
Yes, I think they all and they were all. They also used that Lido tape. What I can't remember what all that lossless EQ, whatever that means. I think they both used the Lido system, and so the reason why the Doors allegedly made it was because they would tour. Love wouldn't tour. Love would not tour. They just stayed in L.A. But I mean, their first 3 albums, the self-titled, Da Capo, and Forever Changes, are all just monster masterpieces. And I'm like you, Anthony. I came very, very late to Love. I didn't listen to Love to probably 2010. I'd heard the UFO version of Alone Again, and I thought it was a UFO song with Michael Schenker doing the lead from the guitar parts for the horn parts. And I remember the first time I heard Forever Changes, the actual album, probably 12 years ago. I remember just being floored like you. I was just like going, wow. Where has this been my entire life? It's like, why did nobody ever, turn me on to this record, And another album like that was David Crosby's If I Could Only Remember My Name. That was an album that just passed me by until, I got back into records and was at a high-end audio store in San Francisco looking to buy my first, new back into vinyl system, and that was one of their demo discs, and their demo room was the Classic Records version of that. And I'm like going, one of those things where just the sound of which is why a lot of people I think like jazz, because it's the sound of the music that really draws them in. That's why the Rudy Van Gelder 3 microphone Blue Note thing, man, where it's just you can hear a pedal squeak, you can hear some glasses clink in the club. It's just the sound of it just draws you in.
That's why I was so disappointed with the Led Zeppelin, and the great man himself said these new digital pressings are the greatest they've ever been. I think he wants to sell some records, unfortunately. But I will say, if we could just talk about Japanese pressings for a second, Steve.
Well, Rachel, you want to talk about Japanese pressings? I think
they don't like talk about Japanese pressings around Patrick.
Well, there's lots
we're going to.
Lots of revisionism about Japanese pressings. I've always been told by people I really respect, oh, Anthony, you just get the Japanese pressing, great vinyl, which we all know what that is, and it is. And so I've got about 30 Japanese pressings, and I love every one of them. And I got all the 4 Led Zeppelin Japanese pressings, and they're great. They may not be Stan Ricker or maybe Bernie Grundman, but they are really, really good. And there's been a lot of revisionism. I put a post up on Facebook the other day, and some people that we all know in the business jumped on and said, oh, well, they had a digital delay line, and can't you hear it? And no. And they said, they EQ'd all wrong. Can't you hear it? No. There's no bass. Can't hear that, Anthony? No, it's pretty good. So there's a lot of revisionism. You know, the Japanese pressings are now going to be de rigueur, or they're in vogue. And now, you know, the vinyl people are going to go, well, you know, crap on it. I like Japanese pressings, the ones I have anyway.
For the record, I've crapped on it from the beginning, so I'm not a jumper on it, crapping on it. I have good Japanese pressings of certain things. And for me, my disdain for Japanese pressings is now on a general basis, not on a case-by-case basis. So
maybe I lucked out.
In the Japanese pressings, I mean, we talk so much about the mastering engineers and all that goes into the mastering. With these Japanese pressings, we don't hear who masters them ever. You don't even talk about it. You say, oh, they're Japanese pressings, so they have to sound good. Who's mastering? What type of equipment? We don't ever get
what tape
that.
did they get? Also,
So
what tape did they send to Japan? So
that's exactly right. I always think about that. It's like, okay, we don't, like here in North America, it's like, okay, it's Grundman, you know, we know it's the master. It's, you know, who's doing these tapes? Who's doing the mastering of these tapes?
There's a different aesthetic in Japan. It's completely different in everything they do in music and life and audio. Their tea services, their flower arranging, everything is completely different.
I mean, their vinyl is untouchable. It's absolutely stunning. I mean,
it is. I guess, you know, from my old ears and my ripe old age, I like the way they sound. I mean, there was a shootout on YouTube. You know what they sound like. Sometimes you think, oh, am I going to listen on YouTube? But sometimes you can actually hear quite a difference. And there was a Led Zeppelin 3, I think it was, shootout. I forget the gentleman's name. And he had 3 or 4 music examples. And I could tell the Japanese one wasn't quite as dynamic as Mr. Ricker's, you know, and it wasn't quite as open as Mr. Grundman's, but it's still very, very good. And
well, if you actually want, in my opinion, the very best Led Zeppelin 3, and this is one where it's really kind of a slam dunk. There's only 2 choices. It would be the original UK or the original Canadian with the red label. The Canadian red label Led Zeppelin 3 is absolutely in the conversation for the best sounding Led Zeppelin 3. I mean, that a lot of those red label Atlantic Canadian pressings were to die for, like the Yes album, Crosby, Stills and Nash first album. Those are really, really excellent. And now they're getting really pricey. But
yeah.
Rachel, do you have any of those?
No, I had a chance to go for a Led Zeppelin 2 red label, but I passed up again. A big dollar asking price, and the owner, Supreme Echo Records, which Anthony may know them, really well curated shop in Victoria. But Jason Flowers is the proprietor of that one. He's been very prominent in the Victorian music scene for many, many years in terms of metal and punk music. But the asking price, and for what it was in terms of the quality, I said, well, what is this? Is it near mint? Was it? He goes, I'd give it a VG on this, VG plus. I just didn't want to put that kind of money up for it on that. Yeah, $150 for that.
Did I send you a Led Zeppelin 2? Like
I do have. I've got a
UK. Okay, I sent you a plum.
Yeah. Patrick spoiled me. You know, I should, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention 2 things. One, Patrick has gifted me over 100 records from his own collection. They aren't crap records. These are good records. They sound good. They're VG plus records. The other thing is University of Vinyl, Tim. You're talking about audiophile pressings. This guy goes out into the bins and he'll pull out a Steely Dan and he'll say, this is an absolute, it echoes what Anthony was saying earlier. This is an audiophile recording, but you don't have to pay $150 for it. You can get it for $5, $10 right out of the bins. Fantastic and in good shape too.
Love Tim. Tim's a great guy.
Oh, Tim, well, Tim comes on the roundtable, as you know, and we was going back to Steely Dan. We know that, you know, we can get it at Analog Productions. And I know, Rob, you're mentioning, I guess we've noticed that Acoustic Sounds website. I mean, they're blowing out most things right now. You can get jazz records for $15 or whatever. I mean, Beatles box sets, let it be for $80. I mean, this is crazy right now what's going on.
I don't want to knock what's happening. I've seen that at other sites. Obviously, like Amazon,
Yep,
has been doing it. Deep DVD Discount, which I think is owned by one of the big music distributors. I got the Let It Be box for $45.
wow.
So, but again, it makes sense. One of the most popular albums ever, from one of the most popular bands ever. They pressed a crap load of those records.
They got to sell them
to a mystery demand that didn't exist. Now they're taking up warehouse space, so they're blowing them out. And I don't know how it works in the retail game or the online retail game, but I got to think, if you want, this many copies of Let It Be, you got to take this many copies of this, and they're sitting on this too. And I don't think, look, people are acting like with the Home Poets and the classics that Blue Note could do no wrong. I kind of, as a novice jazz fan, that's my main interest. They're pressing titles no one asked them to press. There's no demand for them. So those are the titles that I have to be. They have a standard amount they're pressing, so that's why they're $15. That's why they're $10 now. I mean, we benefit from that. So I'm all, hey, keep ordering way too many records, please. I'll pay the lower price. So
I've been put on furlough. My wife just looked at me and said, "That's it, Anthony." They keep coming in every day. The doorbell rings out. I run to the door. Oh, it's another record. Yeah, she's just about done with it.
But there's one aspect I wanted to get to a little bit about, like my point about no one asked that you make that record, and even a little bit with Vinyl Me Please. Vinyl Me Please, like every 3 months, will do this thing where they'll come out with what they're putting out the next 3 months in each of their categories. I'm disappointed by what they're putting out now, and I don't know what goes into their decision making, because at least in my path, which is the classics path, or traditionally jazz titles, they have a McCoy Tyner one coming out. Fantastic album, tried it, but you can go find that record for cheap. So why? And it was a Milestone record, which was well recorded and well pressed initially. Milestone, the label. So now you're making your Vinyl Me Please version to a jacked up, well, their standard price of whatever, $40, 45, 30, if something, if you're a member. And I could go out and buy a regular one that sounds fantastic for $10 or $14.
Well, I mean, why are they making the One Step Eagles catalog? Eagles albums are plentiful. I could find lots. I could find a Hotel California pressed by Lee Holka from Columbia Santa Maria that sounds amazing for 10. Oh, now it's probably about $15 now, for $15.
Because they can. Because you get
a Bernie Grumman Hotel California for $20. I mean, that sounds great as well.
And you can get a Kevin Gray cut by himself. Hotel California for about $30, and you can get the DCC for about $250 with Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman. But I mean, you can get a Kevin Gray, a Chris Bellman, an original for $20 to $30.
Patrick, here's your question: if you had a choice of just only one Forever Changes, the ERC or the Rhino, which one would you keep?
Well, I would not discount the original. The original sounds great, but the problem with the original is that it's cut so low, especially in the first two songs, the left channel, there's not much stuff going on sometimes. There's a lot of surface noise. So that's my main complaint with the original, and the UK is not bad. But if I had to live with one or the other, I would do the ERC because it's just such a stark difference than the other ones. There's a problem on the second song where, that's the ERC mantra. They don't change anything. They just let it roll. And there's definitely an issue with the second song, but the rest of it is absolutely amazing. And I'm not an ERC guy. I'm not that dude, but I'm like going, that thing, the first time I heard it, I was literally in a trance, just like going, wow, this is blowing me away.
I could hear one. I've heard so many differing opinions about it. I would really like to just hear one.
Well, I mean, if you're going to be at the Seattle show, I will make you a CD of my recording of it, and you can have it for yourself. I just send me go to Instagram and send me a message, and I'll let you know,
Sure.
and we can meet up at the audio show.
We're going to be at the audio show for sure. I don't think it's going to be a massive show. It's not going to be like Munich or Axbona, but it'll be a nice show, and it's. I think we'll all bump into each other. Rachel, are you going to the show?
No, I'm not. It'd be a great opportunity. We just moved into Nanaimo from Sydney. So I've got 3 rooms renovated now, and we've got about 2 rooms to go. Well,
Nanaimo.
4 rooms if you count the workshop.
Nanaimo.
Yeah, so we've been really busy settling in, and I'm a little bit behind on a number of things. And so we're playing a little bit of catch up here. But yeah, I'd love to have gone. Norman Maslow, a few kids are coming into Vancouver this summer, so hopefully I'll be able to see Steve over in Vancouver. That would be
that'll happen.
I'll be there, Andrew. I'll be at the show.
Oh, great.
So the show this Friday, I'm doing a live stream roundtable. I'll be here, but I have Michael Johnson, Poetry on Plastic, going to be doing on the show with me. Maybe some other, if you want to get on with me, Patrick, whoever else, I can give you the link, because we're going to do some live stuff, and I want the viewers to have a look at what's going on in that show. And
sure, I'll be selling with Harry for a while, and then I'll be going around to some of the. I've never been to an audio show, so I'm kind of psyched. I'm excited.
Yeah, I want to see. want the viewers to see. I'd love to go down as well. It just doesn't work for me. Just from family first, right? That's the way. That's the way it is.
I want to make one little point before we break, and this sort of brings what Patrick does and what I've learned from him back to the audiophile. So I picked up a record recently, this jazz record, the Sonny Stitt, Blowing the Blues. There's no way to, other than looking at Dead Wax, that this is a classic records version. So it's funny when you go out into the wild, the classic records, they didn't do a good job of labeling them. No. You have to see Bernie Grumman in the Dead Wax.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you go
Genesis,
out,
all that stuff.
Yeah. So I bought several classic records that I didn't know they were classic records until I got them home.
Always look at the Dead Wax, man.
Always look at the Dead Wax. So
and
this
those classic
is an audiophile record. I had no way knowing.
And those classic records, Bernie Grumman, when he first started cutting for classic records, that was the first time he put BG in the Dead Wax, was for classic records.
Well, there you go. But if you look at the bottom here, it's a reissue, because it says, sorry, I'm backwards.
Yeah.
Manufactured under license. Yep.
Under license, but to who? It doesn't say. So it could be Scorpio. I don't know.
That was 1995, though, the beginning of the beginning, if you know what I mean. And it was people didn't know what they had until Michael Hobson started reproducing those records. I remember I reviewed about 12 of them for Audiophile early days. And there was a gentleman, unfortunately he's passed, a very fine writer, but he was an original guy. And I remember he called me about it the blue once, and he ended up screaming at me saying, "How can you like these reissues? The originals are just so much better." We're talking classical, and it was just interesting how that was the beginning. Now people just reissues. That's the thing. I'm with Rachel. I like OGs. Since we're finishing soon, I'll just show you this OG I got the other day. This is a Shostakovich's 8th Symphony. It's an EMI, a beautiful EMI. And again, I kind of beat the guy down on eBay, and just magnificent. If it's original is done properly, especially in the classical world, it's pretty hard to beat. It really is.
I like originals because I know most of the time, 90% of the time, I know it's going to come from the right tape, and the tape is fresh. And a lot of times the artist, will be there and sign off on it. And, if you get the country of origin of where it was mixed and mastered, you're pretty much on the trail to at least something that at that time period is the best that it could have sounded. If the mastering engineer, was worth his salt and the producers were worth his salt and the recording was good. Yeah, that's why, that's why Steely Dan Asia, Dark Side of the Moon, you really can't find a bad pressing of that. You could pretty much find a South Korean pressing of Dark Side of the Moon. It's still going to sound like Dark Side of the Moon. It's a great recording,
Yeah. My nephew's on the plane now, bringing one back from Toronto. He said, "Uncle, it's $150 for a VG is it 5G? Yeah, it's early, not that early, but so it's coming now for $150. Very good. It better be very good for $150.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to leave it there. I thank you so much. This has been a wonderful midweek roundtable. This has been fantastic. And I think FOMO is dead in the audiophile vinyl market right now. I think that's the consensus as I see it, or I hear it from everyone today. Would that be a general consensus as we leave?
I think I hate to extend things, but FOMO is still real depending on the artist and what it is. And that Alice Cooper I just picked up, I'm seeing CB in the dead wax, so I'm thinking Chris Bellman is active somewhere in that, but it's not being heralded. This is a Rhino release, two releases, Killer 1971, School's Out 72, important albums in my own discography, my own life growing up. These were really important albums to me. And so the panties of the, that came with the original one, that nostalgic kick to see that they're 3 record sets. And so, yeah, there was a little FOMO on that. I wanted to get that because, I have a Canadian first press of it, but the panties are long gone. And so just to have those reels, the calendar, which ended up being pinned on my adolescent wall back, I'm born in 58. So you can imagine 1971, 72. These albums come out, I'm 13, 14 years old. So I'm just the prime age group for all these products when they first came out.
Yep.
And so to see these with some lavish packaging and that sort of thing means a lot. Patrick teases me endlessly. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this.
Not the Queen box set.
Beloved
No.
Queen box set. My beloved Queen box set. So, but Patrick's great because he does tell you, he goes, Rachel, there are better. You can go out and find and hunt these down, but it was just the packaging, the presentation, and when you're 60,
I have that box set too. I also have the box set.
And I think
how much time do I have to run around trying to hunt down every, sheer heart attack? Where's a copy? Oh my God, they don't have it. They do have it. It's all scratched up. To hunt down and get that immaculate copy. No, get them all in one swell swoop. I've got them back. Happy, happy, happy. I bought Killer Queen 1974 on a 45 RPM. That's as honest as the day is long. Fantastic. Lots of great memories. But I get what Patrick says, but he likes to tease me about it. But
there you go.
The Queen box set, right?
I have that Queen box set. I do own it.
Do you listen to it?
The first 2 are great, and then the later 2 albums like Made in Heaven that really didn't come out on the one that didn't come out on vinyl, those aren't bad. It's the middle era stuff, that doesn't sound great on it. But if you don't have anything else to compare it to, you'd be perfectly fine listening to it. That's another thing, and unless you're comparing, it's not bad. It's just not. There's just stuff that is better. So
we're going to leave it at that. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good time at the show in Seattle.
Looking forward to seeing you guys there.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you again.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hey, everybody.